on the Total Theater Tony Show. Dave Lefkowitz here, very, very happy to be talking to the head theater critic of the New York Post. She's also been the former arts and entertainment editor of Time Out New York and the author of ABBA Gold, which is one of these 33 1/3 book series. So she's really into that band and Mamma Mia as well. So she has the pulse of theater, both critically and the popular taste. She's Elisabeth Vincentelli, and she's with us on the phone. Hey, Elisabeth.
Hello.
How did you like the season overall?
I think it's been pretty good, and actually March and April, the end of the Broadway season, have been really full of great things. So I've been pretty happy with it overall.
Terrific. Well, let's get right to the two categories that you are covering for us on the show. So the first category is leading actor in a musical, and the nominees are Bertie Carvel from Matilda, Santino Fontana of Cinderella, Rob McClure from Chaplin, Billy Porter, and Stark Sands, both from Kinky Boots. Elisabeth, please take it away.
That's a really interesting category this year. I mean, usually when it comes to musicals, people tend to assume that the plum roles are for women, and it's actually often the case. But this year has very, very strong contenders in the Best Actor. And my personal favorite in there, in that bunch, is Bertie Carvel from Matilda, although admittedly, probably it's a supporting, it's a featured role, not a lead. He's certainly not on stage as much as, for instance, Billy Porter or Santino Fontana or Rob McClure, who's carrying pretty much the whole show, the whole Chaplin, or did carry because that closed.
Right.
But at the same time, Bertie Carvel puts on an amazing performance. He plays a woman, actually, Miss Trunchbull in Matilda. And I guess one of the interesting things also about this category this year is that there are two roles that feature men performing in drag. They're very, very different kinds of drag. Billy Porter in Kinky Boots is a very traditional drag performance, and we actually see the character both as a man and in drag, whereas Bertie Carvel is always as a woman. And it's closer, actually, to what was going on in Hairspray, where you have a man playing a female role.
And it's an outsized, outrageous...
Yeah, they're completely different. It's really interesting. I think it's actually closer. What Bertie Carvel does is a little closer to the pantomime tradition in England, which is pretty unknown here. But I think that's what he's doing. He's doing this completely larger-than-life woman. It's really a female role. He's always in character. I think it's absolutely terrific. And there's no winking at the audience that it's a man playing. It's very much in character, whereas Billy Porter, of course, is more, roughly speaking, in the grand, like casual fall tradition.
Who do you think that the Tony voters will go for? I would guess Billy Porter may have the edge on this.
I'm kind of torn. I think Billy Porter has the edge. It's a very warm-hearted role and performance that tends to play well with voters. Bertie Carvel, personally, I prefer it, but I also prefer Matilda as a show, so that may influence my preference there. I am completely stunned that Stark Sands was nominated. I mean, he's fine, but I didn't think it was a kind of Tony-worthy performance. It's fine, but it's not, there's nothing all that interesting in it. I mean, that sounds probably harsher than I mean to, because I'm very upset, actually, that I think one of the finest performances of the year was completely overlooked, and that's Matthew James Thomas in Pippin, title character in Pippin. It's a fantastic, really terrific performance. This guy does it all. He sings, he dances, he does circus acts. He even has like a little circus act with his own dog. There's a little dog trick in there. But it's also, the acting is very warm, it's very nuanced. It's a tough part because Pippin is such a passive character in a way, but it makes him very endearing. And I was completely flabbergasted, honestly, that he was not nominated. I can't figure out why.
And it's not as if the voters or the nominators ignored Pippin. I mean, it has a ton of nominations. But we're going to move on with Elisabeth Vincentelli of the New York Post to talk about another category of this year's Tony Awards. We're talking choreography now of musicals. The nominees are Andy Blankenbuehler from Bring It On, Peter Darling from Matilda, Jerry Mitchell of Kinky Boots, and Chet Walker of Pippin. Elisabeth, please.
That's another really interesting category. The nominee represents such different approaches to Broadway choreography. Like you have Andy Blankenbuehler, he's the younger guy, I guess, very much like hip-hop influenced dancing, which is completely, of course, fine for Bring It On. Jerry Mitchell, old school, very old school, like razzmatazz Broadway choreography, often uses props or set elements in very creative ways. In Kinky Boots, he uses treadmills at one point. And then you have Peter Darling, Matilda, and I love Matilda, but I don't think actually the choreography is that
special.
Oh, that's special, yeah. He also did Billy Elliot, clearly in that it was a lot more important. So I think he's probably the weakest entry in that batch. Mm-hmm. Then there's the case of Chet Walker, and that is a very weird case, I have to say, because Chet Walker for Pippin, I believe he was in the original cast, so he's very familiar with the original Bob Fosse choreography, kind of legendary. And so he's credited in the playbill for choreography in the style of Bob Fosse, and that kind of bugs me, because either you redo the original choreography or you do a brand new one, but what is that? If I start writing, I don't know, if I start imitating some famous writer, am I going to get a Pulitzer for that? It's just weird.
Well, what about what happened when Anne Reinking was it Chicago?
It's pretty much the same issue.
Right.
It makes me a little, either you turn into New York City Ballet and you do the Balanchine stuff and nobody's saying in the style of George Balanchine, it is what it is. So that kind of weird compromise, it feels really odd to me. It makes me a little uncomfortable. The issue that in Pippin, you also have a very huge circus element, and there's actually a circus coordinator who pretty much devised all those acts, and they're very well integrated in the show and with the dancing. Someone named Gypsy Snyder from Canada. But the problem is that there's no category for that, and I really wish that in that particular case there had been some acknowledgement of that work, or it's odd, or maybe a co-nomination. It's really odd. It's a really interesting work because they're so distinct. They also testify to, I think there's a real crisis in dancing on Broadway. It's an element that's really fallen by the wayside. A lot of newer composers are not that interested in writing for dancing, and a lot of the new directors are not. So I think dancing, the Bob Fosse era, all that is really, it's a key element of Broadway that has really been neglected. It's really not as creative as it used to be. It kind of makes me sad, I have to say. The time of the Michael Bennett, Bob Fosse director, choreographer is kind of gone. And Jerry Mitchell is one of the few who does that.
You are a Tony voter, so
yes.
Who did you vote for, and who do you think the Tonys will go with for choreographer?
I think the whole Tonys this year are really about, the battle between Kinky Boots and Matilda. And I honestly don't know. I think it will go to Jerry Mitchell, because it does have that shadow of, in style of,
right,
which I think for some people is a problem. And honestly, I haven't decided yet who I'm going to... It's going to be between Jerry Mitchell and Chet Walker. And I think I may go for Jerry Mitchell myself.
Just because of that weird thing, yeah.
Because of that. The thing is, Pippin, I love Pippin. It's really, really a fun show. And I'm a huge Bob Fosse fan, so I'm very happy to see that. Who's going to complain about seeing Bob Fosse moves on stage? Not me, but it's kind of a weird area there.
I think we'll start seeing that also more and more when it comes to set design nominations, and half the set is projections. People will have to decide, well, is it together, or do they need a separate category? Again, things have to sort of evolve and change over the years.
There's not much room to maneuver there for those elements, for sure, that are a little hard to pin down or to define, I guess. Yeah, you're right. The projections are definitely more integrated in some shows. It's tricky. But I think, this year is going to be the Kinky Boots Matilda battle. It'll be very interesting.
Now, it would interest us, Elisabeth Vincentelli, to know your thoughts about the best show, play and or musical that you saw this season. Could be Broadway, could be off. What did you love the most?
I would say for me it's a tie between two musicals, actually, that I love equally. They're completely different. One is Matilda. I think Matilda is absolutely, it's pretty close to a masterpiece. I think it's a really fantastic show. It's so satisfying on so many levels. I can't think of anything that I have a problem with, actually, with that show, which is, there's always, you're always nipping out, or the sound wasn't so good, or the ensemble was a little slack, or I can't think of anything like that for Matilda. The other one is actually the Off-Broadway musical that's just reopened for a commercial run. It had a very short run in the fall. It's just reopened in a bigger space, and it's called Natasha Pierre and Great Comet of 1812 by a guy named Dave Malloy, and it's a kind of immersive environment where you're in a Russian cabaret, and it's absolutely lovely. One of those shows where everything is so smoothly integrated, music and the staging and the acting. There's no space for any quibble in there. It's completely gorgeous, and I hope they're going to record it. The score is gorgeous. It's based on a very small subplot of War and Peace. So it's period. It's completely unironic. It's really passionate and romantic, and it's totally wonderful. So I would say those two are...
The nice thing is that they're both running. People can go see both Matilda and Natasha and Pierre, which just opened. Thank you, Elisabeth Vincentelli. It has been a delight talking to you and hearing your thoughts. Everybody, please read her reviews in the New York Post. Will you be there at the Tonys, or will you be watching on TV? What do you know?
I usually have a little Tony party at home, actually. It's more fun than being there. We have friends over, and it's the theatrical Super Bowl, so...
That's right. Well, you've scored a touchdown with us today. Elisabeth Vincentelli, thank you so much for taking part in the show.